All right, welcome everybody. My name is Victor, and this is my podcast, Losing Your Religion and Finding Your Faith. And this is part 2. I'm joined with my lovely co-host, Natasha, and we just finished a discussion about relationships and the shift that's happening globally in the universe and how that's affecting our relationships now. The last episode you were talking about, it was brand new to me, so I can't quote her, but was it Uranus? It was.
I just say Uranus.
Uranus.
Just so you don't offend anybody, but I don't honestly know how it's supposed to be pronounced.
There was a big shift, right? And then now we're shifting into Taurus season. Quick little summary. 20 seconds. What were you saying?
Okay. For Uranus is the planet of transformation. It comes and it shakes everything up. It's innovative. It just flips everything upside down. And it was in the first sign of Aries for 7 years. And just recently, this past year, it moved into Taurus. And it'll be there for the next 7 years. So this is why we're feeling this weird thing. Or one of the reasons we're feeling this weird thing is we are literally shifting from a focus on me and what do I need to now we.
Yeah, we shifted into this me and now we again, okay? I clearly have gone through that shift. There's other people that have gone through that shift. You talked about it on the last episode, how there are partners, people in relationships that went through that shift together. They still stuck together going through that shift.
Well, they're working through it.
They're working through it. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so that shift is taking place. And in this we model, again, it's going to be important for people to, well, not model, but in this we focused time where people are looking to engage in relationships again, it's going to be important for those individuals to know who they are, right?
That was Uranus and Aries.
Yeah.
Who am I? What do I need? What's
there we
good
go.
for me? Yeah.
But the reality is that we're only living a lifetime. So then, with that said, and this may be off a little bit, but do you believe then that this is part of us coming back in multiple lifetimes? Because, it's so close. It's not like somebody passed away. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know these things. But that focus of self and then the soul, maybe the body dies and then the soul comes back now.
I personally believe that. That's my personal belief. And it really shouldn't be that controversial, because if we didn't believe that the soul could come back and live again, then how is Jesus supposed to come back? Right?
Oh, now you're speaking my language. But Jesus is different. Jesus is the exception. Jesus pre-existed. Because Jesus.
But it's scientifically possible.
It's scientifically possible. Yes.
So there you go. So yes, I believe that.
Yeah, but according to Christian teaching, Jesus is the only one that pre-existed.
Okay.
So you and I did not we came into this world on your birthday, according to Christians. So, Jesus is coming back as we can live forever once we pass away. But your thought and your belief is that we can come back, so we live eternally because we existed. There was an eternal existence.
How deep do you want to go into this?
Oh, let's go deep. Let's go. Yeah, I want to know. Yeah.
To me, again, as like a equal parts intuition and science, I'm very left and right brain balanced. It just makes sense to me that this isn't the first go round. And I've had past life regressions, past life regression hypnosis. I've done some past life regression hypnosis for people, whether or not that is an actual past life that they're re-remembering, or it's a wonderful imagery that comes up that tells you a theme that you're supposed to know about a different version of yourself. I don't know. Who's to know, really? But I know that sort of thing is valuable. And again, it's like collecting as much information as we can and really being open to multiple perspectives. And that's one of the things that I teach in my workshops every week is multiple perspectives. Multiple perspectives,
which is...
How do you hold space for multiple perspectives?
Yeah, and which is one of the purposes of this podcast is to provide that space, provide a platform for multiple perspectives to be shared. So I did come from a mindset and a teaching where I did not believe in past life, because again, the Christian teaching is that you are born into this world, and then that's when the decisions and choices you make that will affect your eternity. Because if you can come back, then the fear of hell doesn't really exist, Yeah. But hold on, I want to pause.
Yeah, I'll pause.
So
keep
pause.
Going.
So you were saying that with that, is it possible then, because since my leaving the church, like I've learned and been exposed to other teachings and other ideas. One particularly I want to get into, not so much soulmates, but I don't know how familiar you are with particularly twin flames, and this idea that yes, there is one soul like that you share with somebody, and that it's split in two different bodies, and you go through multiple lives together until you finally get it right. So do you believe in a twin flame?
That's a great question. I actually was listening to an astrologer talk about this yesterday, and he says that he thinks it's kind of BS, that this whole twin flame thing is more about trying to put things into a box. Like if it's not this twin flame, then it can't work because I only, and you might have to wait like 20 more lifetimes until you meet them
that's
again,
what twin flame teachers teach.
And then I have friends, I was telling you about one of my friends earlier today, who believe that we have like shades of twin flames. And shades. So like you meet someone who feels like they kind of have the characteristics of a twin flame, but how are you supposed to know that that's like your ultimate, right? And then maybe not your next relationship, but then another relationship, you're like, wow, this is like even deeper match of who I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I do believe personally, this is my personal belief, personal experiences of clients, friends, people that I talk to. I think there's a handful, probably a really small handful of people that you can relate to at that sort of intensity and level. And then again, as a marriage and family therapist, I think we have to be really mindful to look at how some of those notions about twin flame are romanticized when they're actually just toxic, dysfunctional patterns of relating that are saying, oh, but they're my twin flame. So it's interesting. And when you get that level of intensity, even like if you're let's say you're in a relationship with a personality disorder person, like a narcissist, the normal rules of human relating don't apply. Like it's a whole different ball game. And so I kind of feel like twin flame is similar because it's not your everyday average relationship. Exactly so it's like a totally different way of relating that if you say, oh, this is what happened, you tell somebody this is what happened and then we did this, and you're like, get out, like leave them, like what are you doing? That's crazy. But there's an intuitive feeling, right?
A draw that you're supposed to be in that. This is my twin flame. I've literally, so I had someone in my life who I was like my twin flame, and that was the reason why we compromised on so many things, or at least I should say, speak for myself. I tolerated things I would never ever tolerate, and I remember she used to say, because I would be like, hey, other people are telling me this, I sense this, and she'd be like, but you're my twin flame, it's different, you know? However, do you believe in soulmates? Because you mentioned in the last episode that they're soulmates.
Yeah, for sure.
And then what's the difference then?
That's a tough one. I mean, you can spend a couple hours Google searching that one. I think, personally, a soulmate is somebody that, it's not necessarily a romantic relationship. It could be a grandparent and a grandchild. It could be, and they say the same with twin flames. Like you can have, twin flames aren't always romantic relationships either. But you just connect. It's like that instantly. The minute you meet them, they feel familiar. They feel comfortable. You feel like you just like click, and I feel like those are soulmates. Sometimes even soulmates are people that you could have a bit of a tumultuous relationship with, but they cause tremendous growth, and you're gonna this is one of the things, I just said this to one of my clients earlier today, is I believe that this person that you just broke up with and is doing and has done all these horrible things on some level is here on some kind of soul mission. If you think about it, I choose to believe that from the spiritual perspective, his soul loves you so much, like his soul loves your soul so much that he even agreed to come down here and be like the biggest jerk in order to get you to like grow and push you forward in a way really quickly that is going to blast you into your life purpose here. Because now he's got to deal with rejection from you and all this other stuff. That's just that's just a choice. That's a perspective I choose because I feel like it can be helpful. And if it feels true to you, then it's helpful. If it doesn't feel true, then it's not helpful.
It can be helpful. So is also the advice that I got when I was a Christian struggling through my marriage and telling people like, hey, not people just in general, but just pastors, hey, I'm unhappy. The advice that I got often was God's not concerned about your happiness, he's concerned about your holiness. So even though that didn't feel true to me, it was helpful in the sense that it kept it going, you know? And so I feel like there's times though where we do say some things that it may keep it going, it may be helpful in that moment, but it still doesn't work. So for instance, like, so part of the whole twin flame thing, part of it, I have this little attitude about it because I've gone through a rough relationship with my quote twin flame. And I wonder how much of it is just really the law of attraction in a sense, because like the law of attraction teaches that like attracts like. And so you find somebody who's been who you attracted into your life, who you vibe with so well because of the pure nature of the law of attraction.
I think it's more. I think it's that and more.
Okay. Yeah, but so that's why I want to know, what is the more? What is the more? Because I haven't found it. I haven't seen it. Other than it being romanticized, I've heard it on paper to be more. I've read it on the internet to be more, but I have not experienced the more.
I think it's like the more is like it's a sole purpose, like, and you'll see this if you research twin flames on the internet too. It's like you come together in order to have this experience, but your twin flame, yes, there's growth that happens through the pursuer distancer, like what do they call it, runner?
The runner,
What's the other
runner.
Runner. Distancer.
The distancer, something like that.
So in therapeutic terms, we call it the pursuer distancer. But they come around at a time. I think it's much more than the law of attraction, because they come around at a time when you're supposed to join forces and something big is about to happen. So I have someone who probably is, again, I believe maybe in versions of twin flames. So I don't know that I believe in like one twin flame, where we dated 20 years ago. And at that time, like now I have enough perspective where I can look back, and at that time I had just gone through a major depressive episode. I was sort of lost hope basically for what my life was supposed to be. It was a really, really dark time, and at the time I had a bachelor's in psychology, and I still didn't even recognize I was depressed. I was just very like numbed out and just tuned out, and I was not a spiritual person per se back then, because I was in that phase where I was rejecting the religion that was pushed down my throat as a child. So I had God trauma, like I had God pain. I couldn't even hear the word God without like like having a response. And so my 20s were kind of like moving away from that until I allowed it to like come back to me in a different way. But this person that came around showed up right after I kind of pulled myself out of that depression and started to learn. And the way I pulled myself out was nutrition and yoga and self-love and self-compassion and these holistic methods, which is why I'm doing what I do now. And so I had to go through that experience to really find my deeper passion, purpose, calling, what I'm really good at. And having healed myself through that, I had to come and get credentials to help other people go through that. But he arrived at just that time where I was still kind of vulnerable and I was unsure, like moving into this huge like life purpose, huge life purpose, right? And he came and just loved me, like just, it was just like, it was
what
just
you
like,
needed in that moment. It was, so the more was, there was a mission. Even though the relationship did not last forever, the purpose in accelerating your growth like took place, right?
Yeah, and it gets even weirder than that because I have to think about how much I want to share personally.
Well, yeah, it's up to you.
I'm just
I put my business all out there. But
no, I'm trying to think about. I actually published this story in a book. It's on Amazon. It's called Dare to Be Authentic, Volume 2, and my story is in there about. It's called about my experience of like learning to love myself again and pull myself out of that situation. But I wrote that chapter as I was going through my divorce. So this is the part 2 that you get to see now.
Okay.
But I talk about this person in that book because I felt like I needed to have someone on my team. I was very like alone and isolated and whatever, and that facilitated my blossoming. And then the relationship ended when I moved here because he wasn't gonna come here, and I was sure that this was my next journey. But interestingly enough, when I was going through my divorce and I was going through now my next biggest crisis / awakening of my life, he was visiting me in my dreams. So every night I was having a dream about him. And so I feel like, again, on a soul level, he's probably not even aware of this, but some portion of his soul was coming and trying to like save me again and be like, come on, you're doing this, you know? And I didn't even have to communicate with him. Like I could do it from I feel like the dream level, the soul level. And he reminded me what it felt like to be deeply loved, because I'd forgotten, because that's not the love I got in my marriage. And I was married for 7 years. We were together for probably about 10, and I forgot. I was so used to tolerating the level of love that I had. Not that my husband didn't love me, but it wasn't the kind. It was different. And so when I remembered what that felt like, I was like, wow, what have I been doing? And it kind of opened my eyes. And so interestingly enough, tied into this is I did have an encounter with Jesus as well. So do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I will.
So Jesus is your twin flame. Is that what you said?
No, not exactly.
Okay.
But I am going to be sharing this story. It's part of my PhD dissertation. It's what kind of inspired me to study spirituality, sexuality. Basically, and it does relate to past lives too. So I went to this conference where I got trained in past life hypnosis for one day because I was being trained as a hypnotherapist, and I said, well, they're not going to train me in my mainstream university how to do past life hypnotherapy, so I'm going to go to this place and just see what it's all about. I was really curious, not skeptical, curious. After that weekend, it was a spiritual conference, things shifted for me, and that's when I started seeing the dreams and the visions and lots of different synchronicities. And then I started meditating a lot, and one of my meditations, I saw these two spirals that felt like divine feminine, divine masculine, and then they spiraled together, and then they kind of exploded up into the universe, and then Jesus was there. And it was just like white light, pure unconditional love. Like I felt it. You can describe unconditional love, and I felt it in my body so intensely. You're talking about peace. Like I understand peace, but this was like ultimate, like probably the way that they describe heaven. That's what it felt like. And I had this like awareness, like I don't ever need another partner ever again. Like that's not what it's about. I can't ever get this feeling from someone else. Like this is from me and my source. Like that's what it is. And it's that disconnection from your spiritual source that has you feeling lonely or not satisfied or unloved or whatever. And after that experience, it really messed me up actually, because I was blissed out. I was blissed out for a long time. I couldn't do my taxes. My left brain was like asleep. I couldn't focus, but everything was like, I was like, oh my gosh, life is amazing. Like look at the birds, like look at the clouds. And my business took off, and I kept meeting like amazing people, business mentors showing up. It was just like, I couldn't believe everything that was happening in my life. But I was like living in total bliss as my marriage was being stomped out in this horrible, horrible, bitter, contentious divorce, right? So that was the other part of it. But I feel like that bliss that protected me. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened to me. But that's when my personal paradigm of relationships shifted for myself, and that's also what I think helps inform my work with clients and and not that I'm trying to push my perspective
Yeah.
on them, but I've seen this other perspective, so I can see some of the things that they're going through is really on the surface level.
Okay.
And I feel like, okay, so you're talking about like biblical things, and we've seen some 333s already today, which
Yeah.
is Christ consciousness number, because Jesus was 33 when
Yep.
he died, right? So 333, whenever I see
And
that,
his
I think,
ministry was only 3 years long.
ah, okay, there you go. There's the third three.
There's the third three.
So, and then at my house where I live, my parking spot is 333. And so when I first went to look at the apartment, I saw that. I was like, I bet this is going to be the place that it sucked me in, and it won't let me go. Like, I've been there for longer than I've lived anywhere in my adult life. And I feel like when people say Jesus is coming back, I wonder if he's already here. And it's that unconditional love, that Christ consciousness, and that awareness that, again, I don't want to be in a relationship with you because of what you can do for me or give me or the role that you can play, but because you love yourself and you know yourself so deeply and you're so connected to your source and I'm connected to my source, and we're just going to have like so much fun
Amen.
doing that together.
Preach, Natasha.
And then if you look back to what the Bible says about relationships, what do they say? Put God first. So it's not really that different. It's just a different way of
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely practicing it, yes. And an expression of it is different according to the knowledge and the consciousness that they have at that time. So yeah, I completely understand that. I had, and I agree with you, the twin flame that I had in my life, man, she loved me. Like, she really did. And she had the best intentions in mind. And she really, I feel similar where you were saying, hey, he came to help me. Like, she really helped me in my deepest time of need, you know, so for sure. That's the more aspect of it, where there's almost an assignment that needs to be done, or there's this connection you have with this person that they appear when you need them most. It doesn't mean necessarily that the relationship's going to last forever, though. So I'm at a place right now.
But your souls are connected
Your
forever.
souls are connected forever, yeah. So therefore, I am at a place now, and it's not because I met my twin flame. I don't even know if really that is my twin flame or not, but I am at a place where I'm okay with things not lasting forever, you know, and I can end something. I can leave my former employer and not talk, you know, a whole bunch of crap about that employer. Like, it was a good experience. I can leave a relationship and not have to badmouth the woman, you know. I'm okay with relationships coming to an end. So therefore, when relationships begin to come to an end, and they usually come to an end sometimes because of bad things happening, you know, like it just not working out. And men typically, historically, when men are in a place of chaos, when things aren't working out, they've kind of lashed out in a couple ways through violence, through some sort of drowning themselves in entertainment, you know, some form of addiction or pleasure, I should say. It's lots of times that also can mean sexually, so they'll cheat or do something like that. I have been guilty of that, like so filled with so much chaos and like this relationship is not working. I need to escape somehow, you know. I handle my chaos in a way that will please me, even if it hurts somebody else. I just don't care right now, you know. I need to look out, and I've stepped out and cheated. I'm not proud of that at all, but it is what it is. I know why I did, and honestly, I wouldn't cheat again in a relationship just because of the hurt that I brought the other person, like. To look somebody in the eye when you've cheated on them and you've expressed that, like, there's no, like, that's not loving first to myself, because
exactly, that's
like,
what I was gonna say.
Yeah, like, I don't want to bring that on myself anymore, you know, and then much less even somebody else. It's just like, man, I never want to do that again. However, we're talking about relationships and they come to an end. Some people try to still work it out despite infidelity or somebody breaking trust. In your practice, how do you handle that particularly, especially in a generation and time now where you can be sexually involved with somebody just digitally, you know, you never have to like physically touch them, but you guys get together same time, same place every night, you know? So how do you handle like that, I guess, infidelity nowadays in this day and age?
Well, if you look at it, again, scientifically, all it is something's not right in the relationship. Either there's too much intensity, like too much drama or too much pressure, and somebody wants to create a pressure relief valve, so they have a third they enter a third person, and then that energy can, the stability is in the triangle. The triangle is more stable, and so that would be the person that you cheated with, or it could be that you're so distant, and then you bring in that third person to try to, you know, get that energy moving. So if you look at it from that scientific thing, it's just a natural, you know, you talked about law of attraction, it's just a natural energetic process. I'm not saying it's natural to cheat. I'm just saying that it's a symptom of a dysfunctional relating that isn't any different than that third thing could be alcohol. Video games, pornography. It could be overworking, never coming home from work, you know. It could be spending time with friends. So in that scientific sense, as a systems therapist, I don't look at infidelity, I look at it first through that lens. Okay. But obviously there's deeper feelings about cheating with a person than a job or you know, whatever
or even
else.
porn.
So so that's the humanistic layer now that we look at. And some relationships can become stronger and move through that, just like any kind of adversity that they face. Some, again, going back to like your personality and how you're wired, it might have been too deep of a betrayal that you can't ever come back from it. For the person that was cheated on, or the cheater. Maybe the cheater's like, I can't believe I did that. Like, that must mean I'm not into that person because I wouldn't do that to somebody that I was, you know, who knows. So there's that. And again, you know, it goes back to personal choice. Do you want to work through it and try to save the relationship to see if it can get healthier? I would say I've known of several relationships that have gone through that. It gave them the awareness of what their relationship was missing and what they needed, and then they're much happier and healthier. And I don't think it's natural to not be attracted to another person while you're in a committed relationship for a long time. I think it's just, like people say, you know, the people that are more in favor of polyamory, they'll say, we're all polyamorous, it's just the way that we're wired. Well, absolutely, biologically we are, but the heart can be monogamous. And so are you listening to the body or the heart, or are you doing, you know, you're trying to like rationalize both? And then some people are somewhere in between, and it's about how it's about the integrity and defining the relationship in whatever way that works for both of you. So because cheating is like cheating on a math test. What is dishonesty? It's sneaking around. It's like, you know, being out of integrity. And so if there's a need that needs to be met, there's a way to do it without doing that, unless the one partner's not really open. And I think that's what drives.
And and like you were saying, that does need to be defined within that relationship, because I mean, I know couples where it's an open relationship, you know, like they know, so it's not necessarily cheating because it's known, hey, I'm in this relationship, and since I'm in this relationship, I have needs that you're not going to meet, or we can meet together as long as you know. So but with that though, so some people are wired, kind of seems like they're wired that way to be, I guess, in multiple sexual relationships at one time. Or emotional. Okay.
Romantic.
Yeah. So, with that being said, how does somebody ever get to the point, how does somebody get to the point where they're just like, all right, this is who I am, and then do they accept that? And either way, you know, like some people,
like monogamous or polyamorous.
Yes.
You mean?
Yeah.
I think it's just again that process of knowing yourself and going through experiences, and I think a big part of it is like having permission. Yeah. Because if you're in a culture or a place that polyamory is absolutely not, you didn't even consider it, you're not gonna even think of it as an option, so you're not going to know, you know. But you might have you might have a harder time being with you know, that one person, either sexually or romantically. And again, so here's the other thing with this is my own personal
that's what I'm asking
belief.
for.
Okay. My own personal belief is with in the polyamorous, people are going to hate me probably when I say this, but I feel like the polyamorous relationships are very stable. Like they can be very safe, is because there's a lot of openness and honesty and a lot of communication. Like if you're going to do polyamory, like you need more communication. Like you need, you think about how hard it is to communicate with just one person. Now you got to do that with however many you add in, right? And you got to make sure everybody's happy. But what was I saying about that intensity?
Yeah.
When you have polyamory, it's a healthy triangle, right? Because it's like less intensity. But for the people that are monogamous, like I lean monogamous. That's just who I am. I love the intensity. I want the intensity. So that is not really that having.
And you mean the intensity within that one partner?
And
I'm wired the same exact way.
Yeah.
I even said that in the preview to this, is that the relationships I enjoy most are the monogamous relationships. But it has to be intense, though. You know, like.
Well, you want intense in a good way.
Yeah, intense in a good way, of course.
Too.
Yeah. Sorry.
But either way, I would rather have. I almost don't want to say this, but I'd almost rather have like bad intensity than have it be boring or nothing happening. You know, so. That's
why men say girls are crazy. Because exactly that. Like, I want a woman to be like this head over heels over me, you know? And then whenever, for whatever reason, say she loses security in the relationship, her intensity is there. It's still, it hasn't gone anywhere. However, it's more toxic or panicking now, you know? And so that's why women get that label.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons women get that label. Well, this has been a theme for me this week too, actually, ironically, the last couple days. But part of the reason that we call women crazy is they're speaking their truth, and we're not very comfortable with hearing women's truth because they don't have as much voice in society historically, and so that's one reason. You mentioned security. There's a biological reason why women might prioritize security over freedom. Yeah. And that is because if we get pregnant, that's a big investment of our time and energy. Like we can't do it all by ourselves. We need to know that we're going to have support. So we need to have that security because there's something. This is not a one-person job, right? Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, in our society, it is for a lot of women. But that's not the way that it's supposed to be. Yeah. Whereas men can prioritize freedom over security because they might not even know that there's a baby. You know, they're just there and gone again. Yeah. So I think there's a biological thing. So you can see why a woman might get panicky. Yeah. It's like an urge to be like, oh, this isn't good. Red flag, red flag, red flag, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, but what's the other reason why women are labeled crazy?
Okay, so I said speaking their truth. I think it's a lot of like.
And that's what I'm saying. It comes from that, speaking your truth, right? But it will never. I don't believe that a man would label a woman crazy if she spoke her truth in a non-crazy way.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Okay. Well. Okay. Men and women are just as emotional. We have just as intense of emotions. We just are socialized to express them differently. Yeah. And we process them differently. We have different brain wiring. And so women, Mama Gina, Regina Thomas Howard, have you heard of her? Mama Gina, School of Womanly Arts? Okay. There's a book I recommend to everybody, men and women, to read. It's called Pussy, a Reclamation. And
I saw that actually. You have that book in your house, huh? Yeah, I did say it. Because pussy is in big words.
Yeah, that's the name of the book.
What's this book about?
Well, her book is really about how to thrive in a patriarchy as a woman. And she came out with this book the same week that Trump was talking about grabbing by the pussy, and that was in the news, and then she had the good fortune of her book coming out that same week, and it became a New York Times bestseller. Probably not because of that, but it just helped it along. It was divine timing. Yeah. And the book is actually quite spiritual as well, in a totally different way, so depending on your viewers, they're going to love it or hate it. Yeah. But, you know, it's about, she says women have 88 keys, like a piano. And so we have all of those emotions, and all of them deserve to be played. And if we were always at middle C, what kind of song would that be?
Yeah, okay, so there's some people who just jump on a piano and just start playing recklessly. That's called crazy, Yes, so
it's true. Okay.
You can make a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Incredible
like,
symphony.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
okay. Yeah, so I mean, it's a skill. This is emotional intelligence. This is another workshop
Absolutely.
I do here. I teach emotional intelligence, and so it's about, you have to understand the emotion. You have to feel the emotions, label them, understand them, see where they're coming from, express them, use them, and then figure out how to do that. So, and then I've done videos on this on my Instagram page too, where I say, express the emotion and do your first draft away from the person that you're talking to. So if you're writing the email,
repeat that one more time.
You can express your emotion, you do the first draft away from the person that you are addressing it to. So if you're writing an email, you write it all out, full emotion, like first draft, and then you do not send that. You sit on it for 24 to 48 hours and let it sit, and then you go back once you've calmed down and expressed it, because you just had to get it out, right? And then you go back and you can edit. Another thing is there's physical ways. Like I teach a technique called shaking and dancing, and you just like literally shake the emotion out until there's no charge. I was trained in a modality called bioenergetics. They call it grounding, and you take little roller balls, those little like foot massage, and you roll out the muscle tension in your feet, and that actually helps you like ground, and then you can discharge the emotion. And you might do things like hitting the pillows or hitting the couch or slamming your mattress or screaming into a pillow. These are some of the things that you do to get that emotion out, and then you have the conversation with your boo. That's your first draft is the expression. The second draft is.
But it's so much easier to just go back to the Bible days and women were just quiet and submit.
You thought that was gonna be funny.
No, but honestly, I like what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have 2 daughters, and I don't want them to just be quiet and submit. I want them to grow. I want them to learn how to have healthy relationships. But it begins with themselves, and how to learn how to express themselves, learn how to manage their emotions, and not be so led and driven purely by their emotions. So I love what you're saying, and it does apply to men as well. It absolutely does.
Do you want to know how to help them with that as their dad?
Yeah.
So this is to all the dads out there. You can hold space for their emotions, and so you don't have to fix anything. You don't have to make it right, but you honor them. And when they see that you're holding space, you're allowing them to express. You might even guide them, of how to express. And then you're teaching them that the masculine doesn't get scared and withdraw when she's emotional.
Yeah.
And then she'll gravitate towards those men who will be able to do the same to her, rather than, the ones that just disappear when things get really crazy.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. I've been trying to practice that. My oldest is 12, so obviously she can express herself much better than my 2-year-old. But she says things obviously sometimes are just not comfortable with hearing. But I do remember, and I have thought that, because I was raised different. I didn't engage in conversations with my parents, and I definitely didn't express myself. I wasn't free to just express myself. Yeah, we weren't.
No.
We weren't. So.
Even if you were in a not so religious household, that wasn't the thing back then.
Yeah, it wasn't at all.
Seen and not heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you're absolutely. I'm thankful for you sharing that. I mean, she's entering middle school right now, and I mean, there's some things I want to talk to her about, but I want her to know, she has the freedom to just talk to me. And like you said, I'm not just going to remove myself and run away, or try to use my father-like role in her life to just maneuver her one way or another. So.
Yeah, or like tell her like what to do or shut her down or whatever else. I have a boy and a girl, but my boy is actually the more feminine energy one as far as emotions. Like he feels them really intensely, and then he, tantrum. So like I have to guide him a little bit more than my daughter. She kind of holds them in and is more masculine in her way of approaching emotions. So it's really interesting. So it's not just daughters, but it's like looking at the way that they handle and express and move through emotions, and just guiding them and letting them know that it's safe to express.
Awesome. So I know women are looking for that safety, right? You want things to be safe. So for those who have not engaged in relationships now because they don't feel like it's safe, what's the best thing to do to know, like, okay, is it safe now for me to enter into relationships? Is it just that, trying and seeing if dipping your toes in the water and seeing if it's the right temperature, and then backing out. But then that gets exhausting. Even same from a guy standpoint, like it's exhausting, you know. And I don't have that much time. I really don't to be dipping my toe in every single time somebody's interested that I find attractive.
It's a part-time job trying to date.
Yeah, no, I don't. And I have enough
Sometimes
jobs
a
and things
full-time
going on.
job. Yeah. I mean, I don't. It's your own assessment. Like, do you feel ready? Do you feel like, I think a good thing to ask yourself is, if you're wanting to get out there and date, is, am I resilient? Like, can I be rejected and I'm not going to take it personally? How am I going to handle those rough points? You know, like I was saying, after my divorce, I was in no shape to be able to handle that. And so I took myself out.
Yeah.
And there's been this whole past year, I've really been sitting it out too, because I kind of got into that place where it's been a rough, like, there's been a lot of stuff happening. Again, Me Too, and just a lot of, you know, polarization in all areas, and women's empowerment, and men not really knowing how to support or what their place is, or
that is huge.
Men have good intentions, I've realized, but women are still angry, and they're not angry at men. They're angry at the patriarchy, and then the men and women that are upholding it, you know. And so
and we don't know how to support. We really don't. Like, we don't know, what does my support look like, you know. I can't, like, I found I don't have a uterus or vagina. Like, there's just certain things I just can't speak with confidence, and I don't even want to try to attempt. So I don't know how to really support. And I don't want to give up my job.
Well, you know, you learn as you go. Just like, you know, that's how I learned how to run my business. I couldn't do a business course. I found a good mentor, and I learned as I went, and I learned business through relationship, you know, through that, like, mentorship. So I think, you know, you figure out, it's a daily moment to moment mindfulness. You're, like, constantly, like, checking in with yourself. How am I feeling in this moment? Now how am I feeling? Like, what do I most need? Like, what's good for me? How do I feel, you know, with this person? And whether you're, like, checking into, you know, your intuition, or you're tuning into your heart, or whatever, I think your body is a barometer, and it'll tell you. Like, you'll know. So
good. And that's perfect, because for engaging into relationships now, you know, some people may be following the Bible still, some people may be following the stars or whatever, and is that checking in with your inner self, no matter what you're using as a guide, is what you just suggest? I mean, because some people, like I said, are using various methods, and I want to talk about every method that's out there, because depending on where you're at in life, one may resonate more with you. And is that all it is just finding the one that resonates most with you?
I think so, and maybe I like the idea of using a variety of things, but I'll tell you, your body never lies. Like, your body never lies. If you're pushing down an emotion long enough, it'll pop up in a symptom. You know, if you get, like,
men's bodies are different than women's, though. Because, like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, a man's body may respond and react all kinds of different ways. And I mean, that's when you get to the point where, like, people thinking with their little head, not their big head, you know? So, like, what do you mean more specifically of, like...
I mean, you're talking about, like, sexual, being turned on, like, sexual...
Well, I mean, because even being turned on is a feeling, you know? I know, man, I'm just not wired this way. I've tried... I've been with multiple people before, but, like, it just doesn't feel well with me. I'm just not wired that way. I really can't. I just can't do it. I know other people just do not care. Like, they could be with 3 girls in the same day and just raw does not care. You know, they're wired that way. I'm just not. Like, so what do you mean specifically? Can you just expound on that a little bit more?
Like how you know?
Yeah, how you know, and listening to your body.
If you're ready to date, or if you're ready to be with a particular person.
Yes.
Which one?
Ready to date, because that's kind of
in general.
In general.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not okay with going on a date with that guy that's been with 3 women in 3 days, then you probably...
but she doesn't know.
She doesn't know, but you're going to meet him. Like, you're going to meet him at some point if you're on Bumble or... what's the other one? Tinder?
Tinder,
I never... Yeah, I heard too many stories that I never even... I was like, I wasn't ready.
As a DJ, though, I did a couple weddings, Tinder weddings. And so a few Christian people.
No, I know people meet there, but I don't... I wasn't...
people meet.
Yeah.
all the time.
I just wasn't willing to. It wasn't, but that was my own listening to myself. I was
That's
like,
true.
that
Yeah,
just
I've never
sounds
met
too
anybody
rowdy
on
for
that.
me.
Yeah.
I was on Bumble
Mhm.
for, at various times, and I had great experiences and met incredible people there. So I don't know if it's the same or.
Yeah, I don't knock it at all. It personally just doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
For one reason is that I feel like I'm just judging people by their looks.
Yeah.
I don't like to be judged by my looks at all.
That's a
And
whole other
so-
episode right
yeah,
there, is
definitely.
what happens on the dating apps.
Yeah.
And then this is another theme that I've been talking about with people, is this, that has to do with old paradigm of relationship, new paradigm, is subtle objectification
Yeah.
of each other.
Mhm.
Women will do it to men, and they'll kind of objectify him as like a bank or like a
Mhm.
provider or whatever, and he'll kind of objectify her as like a wifey or like a trophy or
Mhm.
or just the mother of his child or
Yep.
whatever, who she's going to bring his son into the world or whatever
Mhm.
else. But that's it goes into different subtle areas. I would think, but getting back to your question, you're ready to date when you're very like resilient and you can you've discernment. If you see something you don't like, you can pivot, and you're really good at exiting a situation. I'm telling you, like, for me, being on the dating apps is not about finding a partner at all. It's about practicing communication skills, knowing myself better.
Mhm.
Like, for a lot of people, it's entertainment. They're
Yeah.
bored,
They're bored.
But
Yeah,
most
I
people, I think, on the dating apps aren't even interested in really meeting up with someone or really being in a relationship. They're there because they just got out of a relationship. They're broken up. They're feeling rejected. They're needing their ego kind of stroked. Maybe they're just interested in like sexting, but not really like meeting up with someone. I think that's a big portion of what happens on dating apps. And yet, again, law of attraction. You can still meet somebody wonderful because you just happen to be that smaller percentage that are there for really wanting to meet a cool person.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember growing up in the church, I was always told, you don't meet your wife in the club, But then, because no good people go to the club, and I was thinking, like, I'm a good person, and I'm here, but anyways, yeah, law of attraction for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, Natasha, it's been awesome. It's been incredible. It's been amazing, and I know if you're watching and listening, first of all, if you know somebody that will appreciate this and that would benefit from it, make sure you share it with them. Even share it with somebody who disagrees with it. But Natasha will be back definitely on some future episodes. So thank you so much, Natasha. I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, you did a wonderful job.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Yeah, much blessings to all your business and your practices and all that. May
Aw.
continue to reach a lot of people.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Honored.
Thanks, you guys.